in this first panel. Let me introduce you, Laura. Laura Santamaria. She's the research lead at the Fund, School of Communication. Her background is on communication design and sustainability. And she's the co-founder of the Sublime magazine. It's about lifestyle, sustainable lifestyle. She established the periodical in 2007, and the Fair Energy campaign too. Second guest is Eva Knutz from Denmark. She's an associate professor at the University of Southern Denmark. It's co-founder of Social Design created in the University of Southern Denmark. Eva and Laura are going to talk about the social value and how to relate social design project. Okay, thank you and welcome. I think Laura, she's going to start with a short video. You need the microphone.
Shall I? Yeah.
Yes, no, I think the question is a bit what we mean by social value.
What we mean by social value. Yeah, it's funny because we've been on this for a while now, and last night I was searching for the definition because I never searched for it. I kind of assume, but it's quite interesting. And I think it's a good idea to kind of gloss over what we're aiming to define as social. Traditionally, I thought of it as the designer coming out of the studio with a brief and going out into the communities. There are many different ways of creating social value, but I think the concept of social value is aiming to address certain intangibles or aspirations that the community might have. Their part as valuable for everybody. So that could be the commons, it could be environmental, it could be freedom, it could be equality, it could mean social justice, and economic well-being. I think it's I think it's difficult to nail down.
Yes, it is, and we discussed it just before this session, and I mean, to us in our unit of social design, I mean, we social design is, very broadly about designing for and with vulnerable or marginalized group in society. So the aspect of care, the aspect of empathy, and so on are definitely core values. Sometimes when we talk about vulnerable groups or vulnerable people, it's basically, all of us, because I mean, at a certain time in our life, we can be faced with losing somebody that we care for, or we could be confronted with a life-threatening disease or loneliness and so on. So I think vulnerability is something which any of us can be faced with at any time of our life. So I think what social design then has is it has a series of approaches, of methods, so that we can collaborate with people, that we can take them on board in the design research process, and then we can explore together the situation that they're in. And so developing ethnographic tools and so on is definitely a large part of our work in our unit. Yes.
Can I say something else? Yes. I think for me as well, I think often about the difference between social design and designing for social change, which can sometimes be taken interchangeable, but not the same. I think a lot of people might agree about this, but we already have been there with sustainability. Sustainable design means one thing, and designing for sustainability means another actually cater for the grassroots, which is not always the case with participatory design. So we build on the tradition of participatory design, but we take it a step further, I guess, or we look into these marginalized groups that were, a lot of the time, either instrumentalized into the participation table just on an extractive capacity, just to tick the boxes, or left out altogether of the conversation. Yeah? And I think, from what I see of the community, is that we're all focused on this concept of empowering and working in the grassroots. So I totally agree with that.
So yes, I think, yeah, thank you. I think that our panel will be about the creation of social value through design. So we will have some question and answer maybe after the presentation, if you like. So we can maybe start from the presentation, then we open the discussion. I already have a couple of questions to you, already, as we were discussing before. So it's okay to start with your presentation or what? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
So
so
we will talk about social value, but through some projects.
Yeah, I think we brought some things to show, simplifying what, how we do it and what it means. Yes. Eva, do you want to
Should I start?
I think we can start.
Yeah. So I brought some stuff, so I have to rise and shine, so to say. Amongst a lot of the projects that we have worked on, Thomas and I, Thomas is also part of the social design unit in Denmark. One of the projects is a board game that we have created for the prison and probation service in Denmark for children who has a father in prison. This board game is out now in all prisons in Denmark. But before producing this game, many workshops, co-design workshop has been taking place with the fathers, with the children, with the mothers, with the prison officers, and so on. So I just brought one example here. It's from a drawing workshop. Maybe can you hold this one? So we use a lot when we work with children. We work with games, we work with play, and so on. That's a natural way for us also to engage with the children. So in this workshop we made a little card game. It looks like this. I drawn it here. And essentially this card game is about collecting stories. So you divide the card among you and you collect a story of 4. That's the gameplay of it. But the stories in the game here, it's all stories from children who has a father in prison. And it's stories about what happens in this meeting. And one of the stories here, for instance, is from a girl. She's around 15, and she told us at some of the meetings together with family therapists that she always gets very, very weird presents from her father, even though she's 15 years old. And when you're 15-year-old, you want maybe a concert for a rock concert ticket, or you want an iPhone, or a Gucci bag, or something even though it's very expensive. And her father, that she had a really good relationship with, and who has been in prison for many years, always gives her very small childish presents, like a Barbie doll, or like a kitty pyjama set, and so on. And she doesn't know how to, to tell him after all these years. So in this little card game, there's all these stories from the children. In the actually workshop, we are then asking other children to react on these cards, to look at these cards, and to create their own stories with their own cards. So it's like a drawing workshop. And in that way, the pile of stories will grow, right? And some of these stories are similar to the stories already in the pile, but there's also other stories which are very different and has completely other aspects of how it is to be a child and having a father in prison. So I'm just going to demonstrate one of these stories, so also to tell you about what social value is about. I won't, I'll just pick one of them here, which is a serious story. So this is a story from one of the children. He's 8 years old, and he's drawing this story. And then afterwards, it's the family therapist, who's also in the group, helps with formulating the story to the rest of the group. So the story is about an incident. So Ben, here we call him Ben, is taking place at the 22nd of December, around Christmas. And around that time, his father is sent to prison. And so he remembers this very, very well, that exact day, 22nd of December is important for him. His mother is sent to the hospital. That's his next drawing here. And in his final drawing here, he has to spend Christmas with his uncle and aunts. And what Ben is not telling in this story, and what the family knows, but what he's not capable of verbalizing, is that the father is in prison because of a murder attack on his mother. So you can see that these stories are very, very serious. Comes out of drawing workshops, but the social value here is that Ben, for the first time ever, not by telling, but by drawing, can actually, visualize this story, which is, of course, tremendous, tragic for him. So this is just one example of how we use, play and games in social design to as an ethnographic tool, but also for the participants to collaborate and be part of this research. Yes. So that was one example. The other one I think I'll give later. Yes. I'll pass it on to Laura.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to talk, I think this is my best example, and I'm going to talk about the Fair Energy campaign. So the Fair Energy campaign, it's an interesting case because it started as a student life project. It was set up within Loughborough University, London, postgraduate degree in design innovation, and we engaged with Citizens UK, a community organisation. Through in that particular course, we took a social stand, let's say, to do design thinking. So most of our external partners or our industry partners that provided the brief were socially oriented briefs. So with Citizens UK, we worked for several years, and this project came as one of the briefs. So we were trying to address the problem with fluid poverty, specifically in the local area, and the type of user research that they came up with and solutions. They looked at all sorts of different problems like tariffs, like looking at the electricity bills. And I'm talking here 2018, 2019, so it's prior to the energy crisis, yeah? We were already spotting that there were big issues with this. And you might be familiar with the system in the UK of the top-up meters, so people who are under low income actually pay the highest price for their electricity, and they have to fill up a key, put it in the meter, and so on. So what citizens were looking at and why they consulted us, or they came to us, they were looking for a technological solution, some sort of alternative to the meter and the top-up system, because it's very inconvenient. You have to go to a kiosk, sometimes it's closed, and all sorts of related problems. But there are operational problems, and so. But then the outputs of the students were more. How can I put it? They veer away from that sort of technological solution. They all, from what they discovered through the user research, is that the problem was much deeper. There was an injustice there, and there was, a need to set some standards for the industry that has been operating in a very unfair way. And that's, you know, a little bit of the root of the story of the fair energy. So accessibility was one key, accessibility to affordable energy. Then we discussed the issues of energy democracy at, you know, a more higher level, and energy being almost like a human right because you can't operate without water or energy, so basic utilities. And how far can we stretch this? Then we formed, after the course finished, a couple of students were interested, and we formed a steering group, and we met for about a year with Citizens UK, with the Food Bank, and Hackney, with the Hackney Council, and 2 electricity companies at the time, Roll and Octopus. For a whole year, we kind of shaped what can we do about this. And at the beginning, it was fair energy standards, and we were trying to grow this, you know, parallel with fair trade coffee and this movement. But with this market, with a huge regulator, as Ofgem, and the powerful players, it would have been impossible to actually incentivize companies to abide to certain standards without, you know, it being compulsory. So we decided to do the influential route, which is create a campaign to shift public perception and bring that issue into awareness. So I'm going to play you a video. So the project started in 2018 and spanned to 2023. And by that time I moved 3 different institutions. So I'm now at Royal College of Art. But the project started at Loughborough University, London. Then I moved to Cambridge School of Arts under Andrea Canclini University. And this is to confuse everybody. That's what the video. Well, the video is branded that way, but it's the same project.
Hi, I'm Laura Santamaria, and I am Associate Professor of Visual Communication and Deputy Head of Cambridge School of Art. So I'm Principal Investigator of the Fair Energy Campaign project. The Fair Energy Campaign started in 2018, and our objective is to reduce the carbon footprint and fuel poverty. I got interested in this research topic because of the massive problem we face in the UK. Until October 2021, there were 4.5 million households under fuel poverty in the UK, with a massive 54% increase in the cost of energy within 6 months. That we see that figure now increased to 6.5 million. By October 2022, we will face another 30% rise, which will exacerbate this situation. So this project aligns with Sustainable Development Goal number 7, which is accessibility to clean and affordable energy. To that end, we are working with marginalised and minority communities in East London. We are engaging in the locality of the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park and the 4 legacy boroughs that are Newham, Tower Hamlets, Walton Forest and Hackney. The project is funded by the London Legacy Development Corporation, and our activities are organised in 3 strands: policy and advocacy, energy education and emergency action. So far, the project has engaged and reached 16,000 households in the locality. What we're doing is we are training and building capacity in local leaders who we call our energy champions, that actually take action in their communities and represent their communities in front of decision makers. So we are working with primary schools, for example, in education. We have one of the pilot projects. We are building a green wall with children's parents and teachers in St John's Hoxton. And what we're trying to do with that is use a live project to actually facilitate conversations about energy consumption and energy supply. There is also a piece of education that goes to the homes where the kids are kind of trying to educate parents and trying to introduce some behavior change to save energy at home. So in this way, we use the community as a means to achieve a bigger end. With all the aggregated individual efforts, we can go further. So, for example, for the advocacy and policy making strand, we are engaging with youth services in East London. We are working in partnership with Spotlight at Poplar Harcourt, and they have a youth empowerment board that has really engaged with the campaign. What we're doing with them is facilitating building capacity for leadership, and we have set up a project which consists of a podcast that is entirely produced by the youth of the place, and then they are interviewing politicians, energy companies and other big decision makers in the city to hold them accountable and also to answer questions that they have about their own energy futures and how they play out in the community. In terms of emergency actions, one concrete thing or problem that we found was that there are a lot of hardship funds that are available to people who are stretched to pay their energy bills. These are provided by several sources, charities, sometimes they're local councils. But the problem is accessing those funds. So some of our partners have called on to us to investigate how can we make the process of application of those funds more inclusive and accessible. So this phase of the project will conclude with a Fair Energy Futures Symposium and a community fair which we'll hold in June 2022. And with this event we intend to bring all stakeholders together, different communities represented, to define what fair energy futures mean at a personal, community and city level. Next stages of the project will entail consolidating the methodologies and the learnings we had from this phase in order to scale up the action at a national level.
Later on, after we take turns, but I'll play another video which is only 2 minutes that was produced by the Youth Empowerment Board and the podcasters, and it's really nice. They took it on the day of the symposium, which was also a community fair.
Thank you very much. That's actually very, very interesting, and so it's making at least for me quite more, let's say, clear what do we mean by social, what's social, the content of social in social design, and how can we produce value within this. Let's say through design, using design as a medium. It's a specific way to use design, so to me it's just a little more clear, so thank you very much. So it's great. And I was wondering how, this is my first question, then we can open up the discussion if you want, reflecting on your current projects now. We saw what you're going to do next, which are the next steps of your project, both. How do you, let's say, think to create, continue to create social design for your communities? Even if it's, let's say, in some way, let's say, there is a sort of contextualization of your project because everything has to be somewhere in some time. So I understand that there is always a a real base, it is a community in this case, for the project. But what I find interesting is that this universality side or level of the work can be applied everywhere and every time, and maybe not every time, but I mean, there are a lot of other places where your work can be based. And I think it's relevant because again, it's based somewhere, but there is a sort of objective value of this work, and this will make your work very powerful. So, what do you think about it? Do you think there is something in terms of value that can be shared somewhere else, with other people in other places, which is to say the future of this social value that you are doing with your research?
Yes, I mean, a huge challenge often is that design projects, sometimes we are lucky that we can co-design them, we can produce them, and we can actually implement them. So in the case of the board game that we produced for the Danish prison, the game is actually out there. And the children can play them together with their fathers and so on. But we have other prototypes that never, how do you say that never go that far, because either we are not able to produce them, or we are not able to implement them. And I brought another prototype here just to exemplify that issue. So this is another prototype. Yeah, I think I can actually, maybe I can say it. So it's a empowerment kit for cancer patients. It's co-designed with a group of cancer patients through quite some years. And what we did here is we were trying to make a patient, from patients to patient kit. So what kind of strategies, what kind of self-care tactics do they have when they have to live with cancer? So it's not a medical package in any way. So in this, it's designed a bit like a how do you say that? A self-aid kit, I think it's called in English. Yes. So it has like divisions here, up here, in this purple division here. You have tools and tactics that has to do with taking a decision, right? I mean, in Denmark, if you are diagnosed with cancer, you have like 1 week. 1 week, and then a whole system will embark on you. You have to choose if you want to have chemotherapy, operation, lots of things. So you have to make quick decisions, and you have to discuss it with your families. So this has to do with making a decision. The other units here, you have one red unit here that has to do with how you deal with exactly chemotherapy, because you may lose your hair. Lots of things will happen to your body just because of the chemotherapy itself. You have the yellow part down here, sorry if you cannot see it, which has to do with how you create a health team among your friends and family. You have the blue department here, which has to do with tactics in your own home. And then in the green department here, you have to have alternative strategies, like using, eating different diets, taking medical cannabis is not allowed in Denmark. I know it's allowed in UK, but Denmark is changing the law on this, but a lot of cancer patients do take medical cannabis. So all these things here are all strategies and tactics co-designed together with the patients. Right now we have 12 of these kits, but the hospitals doesn't want to bring them on board. A big issue has been the alternative over here. That's a problem in Denmark with the alternative approaches that the patients use. So it's not implemented. It's used as a prototype. 12 patients has lived with these packages for a month, and we have a lot of empirical data on it. But it's not implemented. But what we did is we took one part out that was very popular, And it was this, it's a little card. It looks like this. I'll take it out here. It's a voucher card. Now I actually need you, David, or somebody to hold this one. Yeah, thank you. So it looks like this. It's a card that you can give to your family and friends. So instead of having to ask them to do a lot of things for you, you know, like look after your children, cook some food for you when you have just had your chemotherapy or other things, this card you give to friends and families, and they put their names, and they also your neighbors or your colleagues at work, and they do stuff for you. Right? They fix your garden, they take the dishes, they clean your house, they do lots of things. And they write it up, and then you have this, like a voucher card. And so this was very popular. So what we did is we produced this one element. And we put this one out as it's now out, standing, you know, at the desk where, at the doctor's desk and other places. And the patients can just take one of these and bring them home. But this is one of the challenges that we are meeting, that we produce stuff which doesn't get out there, but then we have to do something else. In this case, we take a little element out and we try to get it out anyway. And so I don't know if that answers your question exactly, but just as an example.
Yeah, before give Laura the possibility to answer the same question, I was thinking exactly the same. The next question would be, if you experience negative conditions, borders of existence, political, economic, social, cultural, I don't know, in your work, and how this can enhance your design.
Yes. Yeah, maybe sorry I answered on that one instead.
Yes. Yeah, I think we discussed earlier, you know, in the earlier conversations that we all face these challenges. In the bigger perspective, when you think about innovation of any kind, within entrepreneurship and so on, innovation is hard to penetrate in the market. People are pioneering something, so you have to, hold that space, understanding that some things might not take on. Within innovation studies, entrepreneurs know that they have to fail many times before they can make it. But we as designers, we have so much enthusiasm for what we do. But I think for me, the bigger issue is there are a few, but within our research position, we have finite projects, right? So we get funded, and we have to enter and exit, and we have to deliver. And sometimes, what we create gets or not produced or floated in the air, like a nice idea to have, but not implemented. I think the other bigger issue as well is that the principles by which we operate, which are inclusiveness, participation, situatedness on context, and adaptability of the plan, so entering the context and trying to understand what the problematics is, and facilitating for the community to actually articulate the problems themselves rather than be imposed on the agenda. When we set up research projects and also commission projects, we have to disclose all of that beforehand. And this is always a catch-22 because with all our principles, the basics of our social design principles go out the window. And it's very challenging. With my project, with this one, for example, we engaged with the Youth Empowerment Board, this group of young people that are there to discuss issues and to somehow build leadership capacity for themselves to represent issues in their communities and talk to decision makers and power holders. So we brought the topic of energy, and we let them discuss what they wanted to do about it. So we had about 3 workshops until they defined they wanted to talk to energy companies and some of the councils town hamlets and new councillors. And because, well, to put in a little bit of a bigger context, the housing association was working on community energy, and the point they wanted to discuss was ownership and management of the project. Who owns this, and how do we make decisions about it, and who makes decisions about our community energy? So it was all about governance. So we invited the councillors, energy companies. They didn't come to the workshops. They were very frustrated about this. They promised yes, that they came, no one showed up, the decision makers. So they said, okay, if they're not coming to us, we're coming to them. and they decided to podcast. So yeah, I'm going to show this other one, which is 2 minutes, and this is the day of the symposium, which was the close of phase 2 of the project, which was mostly about community engagement. So phase 1, we created the identity of the campaign and the strategy, and that was participatory branding project, it was the first time for me to do as a branding person. For many years working in industry and so on as a researcher, it was a really interesting project. And that I presented at the Design Museum, Design for Care, so there's a paper on that if you're interested, on that first phase. And then the second phase was really like the participatory engagement. And the symposium was the wrap-up of phase 2, and they produced this themselves.
So what we try to do today is define what fair energy futures mean for different sectors of society, and definitely we discuss challenges but also exciting ideas on how to progress the campaign for the next stage.
I would definitely say it's been quite an insightful event. I think from speaking to different organisations, but also having the different panels. We had the community panel, and then we also had the city panel, and hopefully from these conversations we can kind of try to create more actionable routes to kind of see what fair energy futures looks like, both on a community level but also on a city level.
There is this real push from the younger generation to say we want to see a different society, we want to see a fairer society. That's really inspiring for me too, because we need to work together.
What we've certainly seen is the importance of engaging with young people. Really getting young people on board is massively important, because it can have so much of a powerful impact across different generations.
What was great was that I think there was a lot of information and a lot of energy behind everything, and I think that really connected with a lot of people, which meant that I think they're going to take a lot home with them.
For our voices to be listened to early on now, that really says levels about what we can do in the future, and if we make changes now as a young person, then what we can do in the future could be even more unfathomable.
It can often feel like we're the only ones who cared, but having politicians, having policymakers, it really felt like something big, like a movement that we can be part of.
I believe everyone deserves access to fairly priced, clean energy. So it's really important to have these spaces where people can meet, these conversations can happen, and we can find and co-create solutions going forward.
Is the methodology. So the way we engage with the groups was through a method developed by University of Leeds, who have been engaging with field poverty for 30 years, and the approach is through communities of trust. So we went to groups that already existed and trusted themselves. Their relationships are set. And what we did was empowering leaders within those communities, rather than just going in, knocking the door, kind of this and that. So all these groups already have, ways of getting together, to working through their issues. They have their ways of talking about it, discussing, decision making. And it's a massive difference, for example, to work with the Church of England or the East London Mosque. Yeah. So the framing and the values remain within the community, and we just let that be directed from the leadership, from the community. So what we did in a way is give an invitation to join, and the intention for the whole campaign, especially for this stage, was to create a common identity, a shared identity, by which all these diverse efforts and groups could feel that they are working towards the same objectives. So, in a way, they could, in doing the practice, they could keep it situated within their understanding, the meanings, values, their ways, their practices, but also they could feel that they're connected to the bigger picture. So here, for me, being from a communication design background, going into design for social change, you can see how the creation of collective identities through all these. You can see all this yellow everywhere. Very subtle, but the representation part, worked very, very well. Everybody wanted to wear these T-shirts and have the banners, and they interpreted how they wanted to engage with the campaign in their own ways. So we kept it all.
I know we have 5 minutes left, I suppose, so maybe we can make open a discussion. Someone has a question for you. From the audience.
Last question. I don't know if I need to do it online, does it matter?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for the presentation. So I was left with this question in my mind. So part of your work is obviously to engage with the communities who are participating in the work with you. In terms of articulating value to other communities like funders, how do you approach that part of the work, and how do you see that? Because we're convinced that it's valuable, the communities that you work with are, but what about work to convince other people of the value of what you do?
Okay, good. So what you mean is here, it could also be other communities or communities within the communities that, yeah?
All funders or anything else?
Yeah. But sometimes these processes are also leads to other projects within the projects. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. So for instance, with the board game that we created for the children and the fathers in the visiting room, the inmates, the fathers came to me and Thomas in the research group, and they said they actually wanted a game for themselves, like a father game, like a game that could, make them talk about how it means to be a father and be in prison. So a project within the project started here. So we started to work only with the fathers on this game together with the family therapist that comes in the prisons. And again together with the prison and probation service, but with a different part of that organization, we started this other project. But I think it came from the first project. But it gave values to the fathers, but they needed something for themselves, if you can understand what I mean. So in that way, it traveled on. Yeah. I don't know if you similar examples. Yes.
Yeah, similar for me. I was talking about participatory branding, so that was funded with internal funding from the university, and once whole identity emerged, we had something there to, strategize about. And it was legitimized because it came from the community in front of the funder. Now, co-creating the phase 2, it took me 2 years to co-create with the funder, private funder, London Legacy Development Corporation. They had a fund that was destined to lower the carbon footprint within the Olympic Park and neighboring boroughs, and I had specific KPIs to hit on measuring, or delivering on lowering the carbon footprint. So, for example, the school project with the plants, the green wall, I won't take a lot of time to talk about it, but we use the devices that were given to schools during COVID for measuring air quality in the school, in the classrooms. And then, we tied it in with the curriculum and so on, but the kids were interested in improving the air quality in the school. So that also came from the school themselves, and the council had an interest in that as well. So they funded a little bit of project, we got another, bits of funding here and there. Overall, they were compromises. We delivered social value, but we also had to hit that measurable impact. Yes, and I think you build credibility step by step, and this is the activist part of the, of the job, I think.
Yeah, that's true. If you can get things out once, and you have that example, then other groups will come to you and ask, can we have something not the same, but can we also have the same processes and actually a thing out there? Yeah, there was a question. Can you
yeah.
I don't know if they need
it's okay, it's okay.
Oh well, actually, thank you so much for your presentations and also this kind of videos and this board games. I really love it. I would like to ask about the conflicts when you work with communities or work for community. For example, I listened about cancer box for the cancer patient, and for example, they need to do the decision within 7 days, and also for the community, for the hospital part, they refuse to use this kind of thing to implement because they have alternative choice. So it seems like they have some value conflicts between them. For example, we value the patients can make the decision by themselves and they can choose different things. But from the part, they refuse to do that kind of thing. Maybe there's some value conflict around that. So how do you deal with this kind of value conflicts if we are talking about social values and we are trying to find the common goods for them?
It's so difficult. I mean, sometimes we just have to constantly be aware that within organizations, within the healthcare system, within the prison and probation service, within municipalities and so on, there are these, political issues that you constantly have to deal with. I mean, we had, even though the hospital doesn't want such a package, the nurses and the doctors, there's also doctors on board as participants who got cancer themselves, were hugely fond of the way we approach it through this package. But and in the prison and probation service project, we have prison officers who tells us why do you actually want to work with this group? I mean, they've done horrible things, and they should be punished. They should be in prison, and you shouldn't stay away or something like that, right? And you have other prisoner officers who really wants us to be on board and wants to do something for the children. So we have to navigate in this constantly. I don't think there's a way out of it or something like that. Sometimes we succeed in actually landing something, a product, a service, a system, or something that they can all, be happy with. So for instance, this, because this one they could all, agree on that there was no conflict in this. So we can take one thing out and and go with that. And maybe we can take other things out and go with that again. So that's the way to do it slowly. It takes many years, actually.
Yeah, I think we have to understand that social design or design for social change is not neat. It's messy side. It's that's life and that's humans and societies. We are entangled and the problems are wicked. And so it's about advancing to a certain extent, and these advances should be coming from us. We can have ideas, but we also need to understand that there will be always conflicting agendas, and that's the nature of social change historically, like with movements and so on. Yeah. That's how humanity evolves. But I am wary of thinking of designers, in sustainability and social change being the do-gooders. Sometimes we come into context and actually make a mess. And even the consequences. Yes. So it's not always a good, and we have to check ourselves in that and be aware that they're not clean briefs. You're not designing a brochure and things, a logo. It's just coming into a site where there are lots of interests. And I think being aware, self-aware, but also aware of the site where we're coming in, listening, and understanding the values that we are pushing as well.
Thank you. I think we have the last question.
Maybe I'll throw the one for Eva. One, I really like the card, the storytelling card, but of course, and design has some value in visualizing the stories that they wouldn't otherwise tell. But then, of course, it brings up lots of trauma. And I understand that you work with the family warfare, but as well, sometimes it can open up, as well, maybe it's about the dark side of the social design. It can open up some trauma that if it's not supported also over a longer term, then it can be very problematic. And my other question was, I understand that you didn't get institutional support for these prototypes to be implemented, but did you understand what the barriers were? Was it because it was costly or changing the system, or they didn't trust the alternative strategies proposal? Why they didn't get on board?
Should we take the first one first?
Yes.
Okay, so the first one first. I mean, when you work with children who have a father or mother both in prison, then of course we have family therapists on board. I mean, we need them on board, and the whole workshop is discussed carefully with these people. So that's number one. So we are together with the children and the family therapist, and things are being discussed very, deeply before we enter. So we produce the material, but then actually the family therapist takes over at that moment when they play. So that's maybe to answer the first questions. The next question was about why the barrier. Yes, but there's many barriers in it. First of all, you have this barrier, and I don't know the issues in the UK concerning this, but you have two different. That's a wall between them. You have patients in Denmark who don't want to have chemotherapy any longer. They go with alternative medicine. That means they're outside the system. So the system doesn't know them anymore. They don't figure anymore in them. I mean, they're out there. They are doing, changing their diary. They are doing, all kinds of, medical cannabis. They're doing a lot of stuff. But the hospital doesn't know about these patients. They are out of the system. And then you have the other part who actually, confirm and take the chemotherapy, because that's all they have in Denmark is chemotherapy. They don't have anything else. So that war is created. But as we went along in the project, Thomas and I also decided on it together with the group that what we wanted to end up with was a prototype. That would be, that had all these voices. So we didn't want to cut any of the voices out. So it became actually more speculative prototype, you can say, because we are using it now to discuss, you know, other futures for healthcare that can also include these patients who are outside the system, right? So this is what we have now, and so we have really, you know, important data, but we don't have a thing out there except from the things that we take out and produce.
Yeah, one thing I would say is that, very briefly, and I'm sure this will be picked up in the next panels, is that when we're coming into social arena, we're doing politics. There is no way we can stay neutral. It doesn't exist. So we might as well, you know, be self-aware of what values we're supporting and whom we are aligning. Because entering into social arena, there is no neutrality. So, you know, politics doesn't have to be defined as party politics, but there is politics involved for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a beautiful conclusion, I suppose. Amazing, thank you very much. So let me thank Laura Santamaria and Eva Knutz for your amazing work, and especially for the social content of your work. Thank you very much.